The Vespasian war beast towered over the burning settlement, its 6 armored limbs crushing the prefab structures beneath them like toys. Commander Ellis Thorne watched through his tactical visor as the creature's segmented carapace glistened with a sickly iridescence under New Harmony's twin moons. The colony's emergency sirens wailed in the distance, a sound that had become all too familiar on humanity's frontier worlds over the past 3 months. "Magnificent, isn't it?" Lieutenant Kira Denton whispered beside him, her voice tight with a mix of fear and reluctant admiration. "The Hive Lords engineered them perfectly. That thing's killed 200 colonists already." Thorne's jaw clenched as he watched the beast inject its proboscis into another building, searching for survivors. "Perfection is a matter of perspective, Lieutenant." 3 months earlier, the Vespasian Hive Lords had emerged from deep space with their bioengineered horrors, targeting humanity's most vulnerable outposts. The established powers of the Galactic Council had offered nothing but sympathetic communiques. After all, humans were newcomers. Barely a century into interstellar expansion, the Vespasians had calculated that humanity would retreat, surrender their frontier, preserve their core worlds. They had miscalculated. Thorne signaled to the squad of breakers crouched in the ruins, 12 men and women in powered combat frames, each representing the pinnacle of Earth's military response to the invasion. The squad moved with practiced precision, breaking into pairs and taking positions around the settlement's perimeter. "Remember," Thorne said over the tactical channel, "Earth wasn't kind to our ancestors. We evolved on a death world, fighting predators that would make these engineered monstrosities look tame. We've been breaking monsters since we crawled out of the primordial ooze." The war beast suddenly stiffened, its sensory stalks quivering as it detected their presence. It released a piercing screech that echoed across the ruined landscape, a sound designed to paralyze prey with terror. "Major Reeves," Thorne commanded, "initiate Phase 1. Reeves, a stocky man with deep scars running down his left cheek, activated the sonic disruptors. High-frequency waves bombarded the creature, targeting the frequency patterns that xenobiology had identified in its neural structure. The war beast shuddered, momentarily disoriented. "Phase 2, Thorne ordered. Pulse cannons, target the primary nerve clusters." Blue energy bolts streaked through the night, striking the creature's armored carapace at precise points where the plating joined. The beast roared, rearing up on its 4 rear limbs, revealing the softer abdomen beneath. "It's adapting," warned Corporal Blackwood, secreting the acid coating. Indeed, a viscous fluid began to coat the creature's exterior, a defense mechanism they'd seen before, an acid capable of dissolving standard armor in seconds. "Phase 3, Thorne commanded calmly. Deploy the enzyme inhibitors." 2 breakers launched canisters that burst against the creature's hide, releasing a mist that neutralized the acid. The beast thrashed in confusion, its primary defense suddenly ineffective. "All units converge," Thorne ordered, activating his own combat frame's offensive systems. "Remember your training. Remember New Eden. Remember Proxima Colony. Remember Earth." As the squad closed in on the disoriented monster, Thorne felt the familiar calm of combat focus settle over him. The Vespasians had unleashed these nightmares believing humanity would break before them, but they had fundamentally misunderstood what humans were. "These abominations may have been engineered for war," Thorne said as he charged forward, "but we were born to it." The war beast's death throes shook the ground beneath New Harmony's fractured dome. Black ichor sprayed from a dozen wounds as the creature finally collapsed, its neural core destroyed by precision strikes from the breaker squad. Commander Thorne surveyed the battlefield, cataloging the damage to his team's combat frames. "Reeves, casualty report," he demanded, scanning the ruins where 3 of his soldiers lay motionless. "Blackwood and Ortiz sustained serious injuries, but their medical systems are compensating," Reeves replied. "Nakamura's frame took critical damage, but she's conscious." Before Thorne could respond, the comms crackled with an incoming priority transmission. Admiral Helena Walsh's holographic form materialized before him, her expression grim. "Commander, I've just received the intelligence report from the Epsilon 9 outpost," she said without preamble. "The Vespasians have escalated. They've deployed a new classification of war beast on Arcturus Prime. Class 5. Thorne's blood ran cold. The creature they just defeated was a Class 3. "Casualties?" he asked. "Total. The outpost gone dark. Last transmission indicated the beast was demonstrating adaptive capabilities we haven't seen before. It's learning, Commander. Learning from our tactics. Lieutenant Denton approached, her combat frame spattered with the war beast's fluids. Sir, we've extracted data from this specimen's neural core. The biologists were right. These things have a hive intelligence. They're sharing information. Walsh nodded grimly. Which means every beast we kill makes the next one smarter. They're evolving faster than our countermeasures. Thorne processed this information, his mind racing through the implications. Admiral, we need to change our approach. If they're learning from each engagement, we need to be unpredictable. What are you proposing, Commander? Human unpredictability. Our greatest evolutionary advantage has always been adaptability and creative problem-solving. The Vespasians are using bioengineered precision. We need the counter with controlled chaos. Walsh's expression shifted from concern to interest. Go on. Request permission to form a special tactics unit. Volunteers only. We'll need to throw out the standard combat protocols and develop asymmetric approaches for each engagement. You're talking about improvisational warfare against bioengineered super predators, Walsh said skeptically. High risk, high reward, Thorne countered. The Vespasians are designing these beasts to counter predictable responses, so let's be unpredictable. After a moment's consideration, Walsh nodded. Approved. I'm giving you carte blanche on personnel selection. What will you call this unit? Thorne looked at the dead war beast, then at the determined faces of his surviving squad members. Monster breakers, because that's what humans do best. 48 hours later, Thorne stood before 26 volunteers in an underground bunker on Luna Base. They represented the best unconventional thinkers from across the military branches. Engineers, xenobiologists, guerrilla warfare specialists, even a former big game hunter from Earth's African Preservation Zone. The Vespasians believe their war beasts are perfect killing machines. Thorne addressed them. But they've overlooked something crucial about humanity. We don't fight like machines. We adapt, we improvise, we overcome. Every one of you was chosen because you think differently. He activated a holographic display showing the Class 5 beast that had destroyed Arcturus Prime. The creature resembled a massive cephalopod with chitinous armor and specialized appendages that seemed designed for different combat functions. This is our next target. Intelligence suggests 3 more are being deployed to Proxima Centauri's mining colonies. We have 72 hours to develop tactics they won't expect. Dr. Marcus Rivera, a xenobiologist with combat experience, studied the hologram intently. Its adaptations suggest it's specifically designed to counter our established tactics. But what if we didn't attack it directly? What if we turned its own biology against it? I'm listening, Thorne said. These creatures have highly specialized sensory systems, Rivera explained. What if instead of trying to defeat its strengths, we overwhelm them? Create sensory overload. Former game warden Ishumbeki nodded in agreement. On Earth, even apex predators have vulnerabilities. Everything that lives has limitations. As the team began brainstorming unconventional approaches, Thorne felt something he hadn't experienced since the invasion began. Hope. The Vespasians had unleashed perfect monsters, but they were about to discover that humans were born imperfect. And that was their greatest strength. The mining outpost on Proxima Centauri II had been evacuated ahead of the war beast's arrival, leaving the settlement a perfect battleground for Thorne's unorthodox strategy. The monster breakers deployed under cover of an electromagnetic storm, their modified combat frames stripped of standard weaponry, and loaded instead with Dr. Rivera's experimental countermeasures. Target approaching from the South Ridge. Lieutenant Denton reported from her observation post, and it's bigger than the intelligence suggested. Through his tactical visor, Thorne watched the Class 5 beast lumber into the abandoned colony. It moved with disturbing grace for something so massive, its tentacular appendages writhing with anticipation as secondary sensory organs scanned for prey. All units confirmed positions. Thorne ordered. Acknowledgements came from around the settlement. 20 monster breakers hidden in strategic locations, each with a specific role in their improvised plan. Remember, this isn't about brute force, Thorne reminded them. It's about overwhelming its systems. Phase 1 initiates on my mark. The beast paused in the colony's central plaza, its primary sensory stalk rotating slowly as it processed information. Then, with frightening speed, it turned directly toward Corporal Takeda's position. It knows we're here, Takeda whispered over the comm. Good, Thorne replied. Phase 1. Execute now. From 6 different locations, specialized emitters activated simultaneously, flooding the area with a chaotic mix of electromagnetic pulses, ultrasonics, and pheromone analogs that Rivera had synthesized from the neural data of previous war beasts. The creature froze, its sensory organs twitching in confusion as contradictory information bombarded its processing centers. Phase 2. Thorn commanded. Ishembiki and her team launched biological countermeasures, genetically engineered microorganisms designed to target the beast's biochemistry. The microscopic attackers would disrupt the creature's neural commands to its specialized combat organs. The beast roared, a sound that combined elements of electronic feedback and organic rage. It lashed out blindly, destroying the habitat dome with a single swipe of a tentacle. It's adapting faster than predicted. Rivera warned from his position in the command post. Neural reconfiguration in progress. Thorn wasn't surprised. Each beast they encountered showed accelerated learning curves. Phase 3 now. This was the riskiest part of their plan. 6 breakers emerged from hiding, deliberately exposing themselves to the creature's sensors. Each moved in erratic patterns, drawing the beast's attention in different directions. Keep it confused, Thorn ordered. Don't let it focus. The beast hesitated, its combat appendages twitching as it struggled to prioritize targets. This momentary confusion was exactly what they needed. Phase 4. Thorn commanded as he activated his own specialized equipment. Around the settlement, hidden nozzles began spraying a dense, particulate mist. Another of Rivera's creations. The particles adhered to the beast's sensory organs, forming a crystallized barrier that would progressively deaden its ability to process external stimuli. It's working, Denton reported. Sensory confusion indicators at 70%. The beast thrashed violently, destroying buildings as it tried to clear its sensory organs. Then, unexpectedly, it went still. Completely, unnaturally still. Something's wrong, Thorn muttered. Rivera. Before the xenobiologist could respond, the beast's carapace began to split along previously invisible seams. With horror, Thorn realized what was happening. It's shedding its outer layer, he shouted. All units, fall back. The beast erupted, casting off its compromised outer shell to reveal a glistening new form beneath, sleeker, with reconfigured sensory organs and what appeared to be new offensive capabilities. They've engineered it with emergency adaptations, Rivera said, his voice tight. This goes beyond learning. They've built in contingency evolutions. The newly emerged beast focused its primary sensory cluster directly on Thorn's position. It knew who was in command. Phase 5, Thorn ordered calmly. Adaptive response. This was the phase they'd prepared for, but hoped not to need. Complete tactical improvisation, based on real-time analysis. The monster breakers had trained for this, developing a form of combat intuition that functioned more like a jazz ensemble than a military unit. As the beast charged toward Thorn, the team responded with coordinated yet unpredictable movements, each member reading the other's actions and complementing them. Where standard military units would have fallen into predictable patterns, the monster breakers flowed like water, constantly changing tactics. The beast's attacks became increasingly desperate as it failed to anticipate their movements. For all its biological perfection, it lacked the one thing that made humans so dangerous: creative adaptation. Now we show them what we're really made of, Thorn said, activating the final countermeasure, a targeted electromagnetic pulse calibrated to the specific frequency of the beast's neural network. As the creature convulsed, Thorn knew this victory was just the beginning. The real battle would be proving to the Vespasians that their perfect war beasts would never be enough against humanity's imperfect, unpredictable nature. Because monsters could be engineered, but monster breakers were born. Commander Thorn stood before the holographic display in the war room of the UES Defiance, studying the tactical overlay of Vespasian movements across the frontier. 6 weeks had passed since the monster breakers' first successful deployment against the Class 5 beast, and the ripple effects were becoming apparent. They're adjusting their strategy, Admiral Walsh observed, gesturing to the display. Look at the deployment patterns. They're pulling back from direct assaults on our colonies. Not retreating, Thorn corrected. Regrouping. The Vespasian Hive Lords aren't used to failure. They're reassessing. Intelligence Officer Vega approached with a data tablet. Commander, we've completed analysis of the remains from the last 3 war beasts. There's something you need to see. The display shifted to show microscopic images of neural tissue samples. Each new generation shows significant changes in their communication structures. Vega explained. They're not just learning from combat experience anymore. They're being redesigned at a fundamental level. Dr. Rivera stroked his beard thoughtfully. They're trying to incorporate human unpredictability into their design parameters. Can they do that? Lieutenant Denton asked. In theory, Rivera replied. But unpredictability by design is somewhat paradoxical. True unpredictability comes from our evolutionary history. Millions of years of random mutations, environmental adaptations, and cultural development. You can't engineer that overnight. Thorne studied the neural patterns, so they're trying to understand us by redesigning their weapons. Yes, Rivera nodded. And there's something else. He manipulated the display to show chemical analysis data. We're detecting trace elements of human DNA in their latest iterations. A heavy silence fell over the war room. They're incorporating us into them, Walsh said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Using our own biology against us. It won't work, Thorne stated with quiet confidence. They're approaching this as an engineering problem, but they're missing the point. Our strength isn't in our DNA. It's in our history, our culture, our diversity of thought. A priority alert flashed across the display, interrupting their discussion. A communication request from the Vespasian Hive Lords themselves. Walsh exchanged glances with Thorne before authorizing the transmission. The holographic image shifted to reveal a Vespasian sovereign, a being that resembled an elegant fusion of insect and cephalopod, with luminescent patterns rippling across its exoskeleton. We acknowledge your resistance, the sovereign stated without preamble, its translator rendering its clicks and whistles into flattened English. It was unanticipated. Thorne stepped forward. Your war beasts were impressive, but fundamentally flawed. Explain this flaw, the sovereign demanded, its sensory appendages twitching with what might have been curiosity. You designed them to be perfect, Thorne said. Perfection is static. Evolution, true survival, requires imperfection, requires failure, requires adaptation through trial and error. Humans have been evolving through imperfection for millions of years. The sovereign was silent for a moment, its chromatophores shifting through complex patterns. We have studied your species extensively. You were deemed inefficient, chaotic. Your survival was, statistically, anomalous. That's exactly why we survive, Walsh interjected. We're the statistical anomaly that can't be plotted on your perfect curves. The sovereign's appendages rippled in what the xenobiologists had identified as their gesture of contemplation. We have a proposal. Our bioengineering capabilities combined with your anomalous adaptability. An exchange. You want to study us, Thorne realized, to understand what you couldn't defeat. And you wish to survive, the sovereign countered. Mutual benefit is possible. Admiral Walsh stepped forward. We'll consider your proposal, but the war beasts must be withdrawn from all human colonies immediately. This is acceptable. The sovereign agreed with surprising readiness. We will await your response. As the transmission ended, the war room erupted in discussion. Rivera was already talking about the scientific possibilities, while security officers warned of potential deception. Thorne remained silent, contemplating what had just occurred. The Vespasians hadn't just been testing human military capability, they'd been conducting an evolutionary experiment, probing humanity's adaptive responses, and now, finding themselves unable to overcome those responses, they sought to understand them. What do you think, Commander? Walsh asked quietly. Thorne looked at the tactical display, where markers showed war beasts already beginning to withdraw from human space. I think we've earned their respect, and that's a start. But we proceed carefully. The Vespasians think in centuries, not months. And if it's a trap? Thorne smiled thinly. Then we'll adapt, as we always have. That's what they fear most about us. As the strategic team began outlining parameters for potential diplomatic engagement, Thorne couldn't help but appreciate the irony. The Vespasians had unleashed monsters to eradicate humanity, only to discover that humans have been breaking monsters, both literal and metaphorical, since before they learned to write. Now, perhaps, they could teach that lesson to the stars. The diplomatic outpost orbiting neutral space between human and Vespasian territories hummed with activity as the exchange program entered its third month. What had begun as cautious scientific collaboration was evolving into something unprecedented in galactic history. Thorne watched from the observation deck as Dr. Rivera worked alongside 3 Vespasian bioengineers, their appendages manipulating holographic protein structures with incredible precision. Despite his initial skepticism, Thorne had to admit the exchange was yielding results. Human understanding of bioengineering had advanced decades in mere months, while the Vespasians were gradually beginning to grasp the concept of controlled chaos that made human military tactics so effective. Fascinating creatures, remarked Admiral Walsh, joining him at the viewport. They build everything to specification: their ships, their weapons, even their own bodies. The concept of random mutation was completely foreign to them. They've been engineering themselves for so long, they forgot what it means to evolve naturally. Thorne agreed. No wonder they couldn't understand us. A gentle tone signaled an incoming priority communication. The holographic display activated to show Lieutenant Denton's face, her expression urgent. "Commander, we've received an emergency transmission from the Vespasian homeworld. Their outer colonies are under attack." "By whom?" Walsh demanded. "The Moore Collective," Denton replied. "They've launched a full-scale invasion of Vespasian space using some kind of advanced biomechanical weapons." Thorne and Walsh exchanged alarmed glances. The Moore were known to humanity only through second-hand intelligence. A secretive species from the galactic core, rumored to harvest biological material from conquered species for their own use. "The Vespasian sovereign is requesting immediate consultation," Denton continued. "They're asking for our help, Commander." Within the hour, Thorne stood in the station's secure conference chamber as the Vespasian sovereign's holographic form projected before them. Its usually lustrous exoskeleton appeared dulled, its movements less fluid than before. "The Moore have breached our defensive perimeter," the sovereign stated. "Their harvester constructs are unlike anything we have encountered. Our perfectly engineered defenses have failed." "What exactly are these harvesters?" Thorne asked. The sovereign transmitted visual data showing massive, spider-like machines laying waste to a Vespasian colony. Each had what appeared to be organic components integrated into mechanical frameworks, a perversion of the Vespasians' own bioengineering principles, but with a cold, industrial efficiency. "The Moore do not create life," the sovereign explained. "They consume it, integrate it, repurpose it. They have been observing our conflict with your species. We believe they attacked now because our forces were diverted. And you want our help," Walsh stated flatly, "after you tried to exterminate us." The sovereign's appendages rippled, in what they had learned was an expression of regret. "We misjudged humanity. We saw your chaotic nature as weakness. Now we understand it as strength. The Moore are methodical, calculating predators. They cannot be defeated by perfect countermeasures because they adapt by absorption." "They sound like us," Rivera commented from the side of the room. "No," the sovereign corrected. "You create, they only consume. This is why we need the monster breakers." Thorne studied the tactical data streaming alongside the sovereign's projection. The Moore attack pattern was relentless and systematic, not unlike how humanity might have approached such an invasion, but without any apparent concern for casualties on either side. "These Moore," Thorne said carefully, "they're a threat to all biological life, not just the Vespasians." "Correct," the sovereign confirmed. "If they consume our bioengineering capabilities and combine them with their mechanical efficiency, they will be unstoppable. Your colonies would be next." Admiral Walsh pulled Thorne aside, speaking in low tones. "This could be our opportunity to secure a real alliance, not just a temporary ceasefire. The Vespasians have technology centuries beyond ours. Or it could be walking into a trap," Thorne countered. "We'd be committing forces deep in their territory." "I don't think it's a deception," Rivera interjected, having approached silently. "I've been studying their biology for months. The sovereign is displaying genuine physiological indicators of distress. They're scared, Commander." Thorne turned back to the sovereign. "If we help you, we want a formal alliance. Full technological exchange, mutual defense pact, and recognition of all current human colonies with protection against future expansion conflicts." "Agreed," the sovereign responded without hesitation, surprising them all with its readiness. "We have come to understand that diversity, even the chaos of human unpredictability, strengthens the whole." The Moore proved this by their antithesis. 12 hours later, the monster breakers were mobilizing. Thorne had expanded the unit to over 200 specialized operators, incorporating lessons from both their battles against the war beasts and the knowledge gained from Vespasian bioengineers. As their ships prepared to jump toward Vespasian space, Thorn addressed his team. This isn't about saving the Vespasians. This is about protecting all biological life from mechanized consumption. The Moor represent a philosophy that's the antithesis of both human adaptation and Vespasian design. They don't create, they only take. Lieutenant Denton, now commanding her own monster breaker squad, looked up from her equipment checks. So we're the lesser of two evils to the Vespasians. We're not evil at all, Thorn corrected her. We're just chaotic, and sometimes, chaos is exactly what the universe needs to break the perfect monster. As the fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, Thorn couldn't help but reflect on the irony. 3 months ago, they had been fighting for humanity's survival against the Vespasians' biological weapons. Now, they were rushing to save the Vespasians from mechanical predators. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor after all, and humans, with their imperfect, adaptable nature, were proving to be its punchline. The Vespasian colony world of Chalmev burned. Massive Moor harvesters stalked through its crystalline cities, their mechanical limbs crushing structures while extraction appendages gathered biological material from the fleeing inhabitants. From his command position in the orbiting human cruiser Indomitable, Thorn watched the tactical display with grim determination. Harvester units advancing on the central spire, reported Lieutenant Denton. Now leading her own monster breaker squad on the surface, Vespasian defenders are falling back, but in perfect order. They're still fighting too methodically. They can't help it, Thorn responded. Remind our Vespasian allies to embrace controlled chaos. Break formation. Use unpredictable patterns. 3 weeks of joint operations against the Moor had proven challenging. While the Vespasians were quick learners intellectually, centuries of engineered precision made tactical unpredictability difficult for them to implement. Yet with each engagement, they were adapting, not through bioengineering, but through experience. Commander, Dr. Rivera called from his station. I've completed analysis of the material samples from the destroyed harvester units. The Moor aren't just using Vespasian biological components. They're incorporating them into a networked intelligence system. Explain, Thorn demanded. Rivera manipulated the holographic display to show microscopic images of neural tissue integrated with mechanical components. They're creating a hive mind, but not like the Vespasians. This is forced integration, organic components enslaved by mechanical control systems. Admiral Walsh, coordinating the Allied fleet actions from her flagship, joined the conversation via holographic projection. Can we disrupt this network? Potentially, Rivera nodded. But we need to understand more about how the Moor Central Intelligence operates. For that, we need a live specimen. Thorn studied the tactical display. The Moor command unit has remained in orbit, coordinating the harvesters but never engaging directly. Classic predator behavior, commented Ashambiki, who had become the unit's tactical advisor on predator psychology. They're risk-averse, letting their harvester units take all the danger while they process the gains. A plan began forming in Thorn's mind. Risky, but potentially decisive. What if we give them something they can't resist? Something so valuable, they'd risk direct engagement. What could be that valuable to them? Walsh asked. The one thing they don't have. Thorn replied. Human adaptive unpredictability, in biological form. The plan came together rapidly. Dr. Rivera worked with Vespasian bioengineers to create what appeared to be a damaged but functional human research vessel. Its hold containing biological samples from Earth's most adaptable species, including human tissue cultures. The ship was programmed to appear crippled, limping through space near the Moor command vessel. This is insane, Denton commented as she and her squad prepared to board the bait ship. We're literally offering ourselves as targets. The oldest hunting technique in human history, Thorn replied as he checked his specialized combat frame, luring the predator into a trap. The operation launched under communications blackout. The bait ship drifted into Moor sensor range, broadcasting false distress signals. Thorn and 20 monster breakers hid within specialized compartments designed to mask their like signs, while the automated systems mimicked a minimal injured crew. Hours passed in tense silence before the sensors detected movement. The massive Moor command ship, a grotesque fusion of mechanical engineering and harvested biological components, approached cautiously. They're scanning us, whispered Rivera over the secure channel. But they're detecting only what we want them to detect. The Moor vessel extended docking appendages, latching onto their ship with mechanical precision. Thorn listened to the sounds of cutting tools breaching their hull, followed by the heavy tread of more collection units boarding. "Wait for it," he instructed his team as the footsteps drew closer. "Let them think they found exactly what they wanted." The compartment door slid open, revealing a Moore harvester unit, a nightmarish combination of articulated mechanical limbs surrounding a core of incorporated biological components from various species. Its sensory array focused on the seemingly valuable biological samples prominently displayed. "Now," Thorn ordered. The monster breakers erupted from their hiding places, attacking with weapons specifically designed based on their analysis of more vulnerabilities. Rather than targeting the nearly impervious mechanical components, they focused on the junction points where biological elements integrated with the machinery. The harvester units, programmed for collection rather than combat, responded with mechanical predictability. But as the battle progressed, Thorn noticed something disturbing. They were adapting, becoming more unpredictable with each passing minute. "They're learning from us in real time," he warned the team. "Push to the command center before they can fully integrate our tactics." Fighting through the Moore vessel was like battling through the inside of some twisted mechanical organic nightmare. Harvested biological components, some recognizably Vespasian, others from species unknown, had been incorporated throughout the ship's systems, forced to serve mechanical functions. When they finally breached the command center, they found not a crew, but a single massive biomechanical entity, the Moore Overseer. Unlike the harvester units, this being appeared almost entirely biological, with mechanical components serving the organic rather than the reverse. "You have come willingly," it stated in a voice that seemed to emerge from multiple sources simultaneously. "Your adaptability will strengthen the collective." "We didn't come to be harvested," Thorn replied, raising his weapon. "We came to end the harvest." The Overseer's expression, a disturbing approximation of multiple species' facial features merged together, formed what might have been a smile. "You cannot destroy us. We are evolution perfected, the inevitable convergence of biological adaptability and mechanical efficiency." "That's where you're wrong," Thorn countered. "Evolution isn't about perfection. It's about survival through change, through beautiful, messy imperfection." As they spoke, Rivera was surreptitiously deploying the weapon they had developed with Vespasian help, a bioengineered virus designed to sever the forced neural connections between the Moore's mechanical systems and their harvested biological components. "Your species fascinates us," the Overseer continued, seemingly unaware of Rivera's actions. "You resist optimization. You embrace inefficiency. Yet you survive, even thrive. You will make an excellent addition to the collective." "We're not joining anything," Thorn said. "We're here to free what you've taken." The virus activated, spreading rapidly through the ship's neural network. Around them, the harvested biological components began to separate from their mechanical constraints, the forced neural connections dissolving. The Overseer convulsed as its control systems failed. "What have you done?" it demanded, its voice distorting as the unified network collapsed. "We've broken your perfect system," Thorn replied. "Something humans have always been good at." Throughout the Moore fleet, the effect was cascading. Harvester units collapsed as their enslaved biological components rejected mechanical control. The perfect synchronization that had made the Moore so formidable disintegrated into chaos. On the planet below, Denton and the remaining monster breakers, fighting alongside Vespasian defenders, watched in amazement as the Moore harvesters suddenly froze, then collapsed. "The biological components are free," Rivera reported, monitoring the virus's spread. "They're rejecting mechanical control across the entire Moore network." In the command center, the Overseer's form was changing, the harvested components separating from the central entity, revealing what the Moore truly were, a small, physically unimposing species that had used harvested biological material to compensate for their own evolutionary limitations. "You've doomed us," the revealed Moore leader gasped, its true form frail and vulnerable. "Without the collective, we cannot survive." Thorn lowered his weapon. "You could have asked for help, for alliance. Instead, you chose consumption. Cooperation is inefficient," the Moore leader insisted, even as its systems failed. "Optimization required. Control. That was your fundamental misunderstanding," Thorn replied. "True strength doesn't come from control. It comes from diversity, from the beautiful chaos of different approaches working together." As the Moore fleet disintegrated across the system, Thorn contacted Admiral Walsh, The Moor threat is neutralized. Their harvested components are separating. Many are still viable. We'll need medical ships for recovery operations. 3 months later, Commander Thorne stood in the newly constructed Alliance chamber on Earth, watching as the Vespasian sovereign and representatives from 23 other spacefaring species signed the Mutual Protection Accord. The defeat of the Moor had revealed their extensive harvesting operations across multiple sectors, uniting former rivals against a common threat. It is ironic, the Vespasian sovereign observed as it approached Thorne after the ceremony. We sought to conquer your colonies with perfect war beasts, only to discover that imperfection was the greater strength. Not imperfection, Thorne corrected. Adaptation. The willingness to change, to evolve, to break old patterns when they no longer serve. A distinction we now understand.